Okay, Mr. Chair, we are in public session.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the final meeting of Joint Commission on Public Ethics. I know we were told that before, but as our statutory existence ends at midnight tonight, I think this is the last one. What I'd like to do is ask for a motion. Actually, what I'd like to do before that is asking for a roll call of the commissioners that are participating either by being physically present or via WebEx. So, Walt, could you call the roll and I'll
Judge
answer
Braun,
last.
I'm here.
Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Shapiro.
Here.
Commissioner Gerstmann.
Yes.
Judge Henricks.
Present.
Commissioner Jacob.
Present.
Levine.
Yes.
Mr. McNamara.
Here.
Weissman.
Present.
Mr. Yates.
Present.
Okay, yes. The only one we didn't hear was Commissioner Brown, but he's having difficulties.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make some brief remarks to introduce the subject of this meeting. At the Commission's meeting on October 5th, 2021, as recorded in the meeting minutes of the public session that day, Chair Jose Nieves stated that, quote, during the executive session, the Commission voted to approve a resolution to retain independent counsel to conduct an inquiry into legal and procedural operations of the Commission, and there will be further action at a future date, end quote. The Commission has received independent counsel's attorney-client privileged report. Pursuant to statute, 9 commissioners called this meeting to decide on further action with respect to this investigative report. Normally, we have a 72-hour notice, but I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with our failure to give that 72-hour notice. Our meeting guidelines say that, quote, public notice of the time and place of a meeting scheduled shall be conspicuously posted on the Commission's website prior to the meeting, which it has been, and at least 72 hours before such meeting when practical. So since there were 9 commissioners who called for this meeting beginning last night around 6 p.m. and continuing into Central Africa time today, we didn't have, it was not practical to give 72 hours notice. But what I'd like to do is invite a motion to conduct this special meeting on abbreviated notice, just to make sure that we're doing this thing correctly.
So moved.
All right, and just for my sake, because I have a hard time picking up the voices somewhat, if you could identify, it sounded like Commissioner Jacob made the motion, but if you could give me your name when you're...
I did.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Second, Ron.
Second by Shapiro.
Okay, a roll call vote, please.
Judge Braun.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown. Commissioner DePiero.
Yes.
Commissioner Gerstmann.
Yes.
Judge Henricks.
Yes.
Commissioner Jacob.
Yes.
Levine.
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara.
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman.
Yes. Yes.
Chair Fisher.
Yes. Thank you. The agendas that were circulated to you earlier this afternoon, which we began putting together this morning, are simple and straightforward. I don't see why it should take us more than an hour or so to complete our work, but you never know. Before any further motions are made or considered, I'd like to walk you through the agendas. So item 3, which I'm not going to invite a motion on yet because I'd like to walk you through the agendas. Item 3 would be a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Executive Law 9419B. My thought is that after we discuss the actions that Chair Nieves promised we would take at some point in time, we will either vote in executive session and come out and report on that vote, or we will come out of executive session and vote. The agenda calls for the vote in the executive session, but I'm not fixated on that. But that's the purpose of the executive session. When we come out, if the vote is taken, I would report on the vote in the details in terms of what was the resolution and how each of us voted, unless there's some objection to that. I don't know why there would be. In the executive session, what I'd like to discuss is the action to take on the report. So that's pure and simple what is set forth in the two agendas. And with that said, I'd like to invite Executive Director Berlin to make some remarks on why he believes it's advisable for us to discuss these options in executive session before taking a vote, either in executive session or in public session. Executive Director Berlin.
Yes, thank you. The very short answer, and obviously I can't go into substantive detail in public session on these matters, is that the substance of what will be discussed involves privileged attorney-client communications, the rendition of legal advice, the discussion of matter that, as a matter of statute, is deemed confidential and non-public, and the likelihood, and I don't want to go into substantive matter again, employment-related matter, which is also deemed to be confidential. And for those reasons, I believe the discussion on the matter that's going to be before the commission needs to be conducted in executive session, and failing that, it would be very difficult, if not impossible, for staff to advise and inform the commission on those matters.
So I'm seeing Judge Braun's hand up, so I recognize Rick Braun.
Yes. Well, we got the report very recently, as we all know. A conference call was scheduled for yesterday, which I and most of the other commissioners participated in. During the robust discussion about what we could and should do regarding the report, it became apparent to me that we needed to take an official action by way of a special meeting, and therefore I was the one who called for the meeting, and I believe 8 other commissioners supported that, and here we are. The report does contain confidential information as well as attorney-client privilege information. And although, as I've said numerous times, I believe very strongly in transparency in government, there are reasons that certain matters are kept confidential, particularly because our enabling act, the statute that created the commission, provides that certain matters are to be confidential. It also does provide that the commission by vote can waive that confidentiality. And therefore, I think this matter should be discussed in public session, in executive session. And if we decide to return to a public discussion, that can certainly occur. But I don't believe we can discuss any details in public session without a vote of the commission allowing that. And I'm not prepared at this point to support just taking a raw vote without a discussion, in part because some of the commissioners weren't able to attend yesterday's meeting and therefore should hear the discussion that would occur, which would include at least some of what was said yesterday.
Thank you. I don't intend to cut off discussion, and what I'd like to do is invite a motion and a second, and then I'll ask for discussion and debate on the motion. So is there a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Executive Law 9419B?
Mr. Chairman, I have a different motion to make.
Your Not your time to talk yet, Commissioner. Thank you.
Well,
So
I'll
make a
just-
Why
motion,
isn't it my time to talk?
because I was introducing a motion that's on the agenda. You sent no information to staff or me.
Oh, let's
Stating that you would like a different agenda. So I would like to go forward with a motion and a second and have a vote. And if the vote fails, then we can decide what to do next.
I believe it's my legal prerogative, Mr. Chairman, to make a motion at any time.
Point of
As long
order,
as it-
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
Well, we have an agenda which was set by staff with the acting commissioner's input, as he said. The agenda can be modified, but that would have to be done by motion. Certainly, Commissioner Levine, you have the right to speak and make another motion, but that would be under, presumably under old and new business. Or if the agenda is modified as set, then it could be done now. But right now, the chair stated what the agenda is for the moment. But certainly, I agree with you, Commissioner Levine, you have a right to speak and make your motion, but it would be in order later unless the agenda is amended.
Well, do I understand correctly, Mr. Chairman, there is no motion that has been seconded, and therefore there is no motion now before?
No, you interrupted. There's no motion because there's no opportunity for other commissioners to second the motion. So if you would give us the ability to find out if there's a second, I would be most appreciative.
I'll second it, given what I said earlier about this.
Who made the motion?
I made the motion. I make the motion now.
Who, is that you, Bill?
Yes, Fisher, sorry. All right, as I said, I wish to encourage debate and discussion if there's a desire to have any at this point on the motion that's now on the floor.
Sounds like we're back to the good old days.
Commissioner Hendricks?
People can't talk.
Yes, I would just say, while I find myself sitting here very supportive of release of the document in its entirety, it would make sense to, listening to what Judge Braun said, I think it makes sense to have a discussion privately before making that decision. So I would just second sort of the thoughts that Judge Braun laid out.
I would like to hear what Commissioner Levine says before I vote on this.
So,
motion.
Commissioner Jacob, with all due respect, Commissioner Gersman had her hand up before you began talking. So I would like to recognize her, and then I'll come back to you if that's okay with you.
Fine.
Thank you.
I just want to point out that a discussion of this motion may involve some breach of or some waiver of attorney-client privilege. And I would caution commissioners to be very careful with respect to any discussion before we go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Jacob, you are next.
I just would like to hear from Commissioner Levine before we vote.
Okay, Commissioner Levine, you're next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to the resolution. The amendment is that any discussion in executive session will be followed by motions and vote in the subsequent public session. Otherwise, I won't vote to go into executive session.
I can accept that motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Will Commissioner Braun, who seconded my motion, also accept the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Call the vote, please. I'm sorry, Commissioner Gersman, before we call the roll.
Yeah, I have one caution, and that is that there may be multiple motions that are possible. And it may not be appropriate to have all such motions in public session because of attorney-client privilege and waiver thereof. So I wonder if Commissioner Levine would accept an amendment to his amendment to have discussion and straw vote, at least in closed session, so that there can be a final presentation, or at least have discussion in closed session of how the motions are going to be addressed in private session without a blanket that all motions with respect to what we do with this report must be in public session.
I put a question to Commissioner Gerson, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Thank you. Are you suggesting that a motion to have the report put into the public domain today in toto without redaction should be subject to some caveat about attorney-client privilege?
I have no problem with that motion if that is the only motion. And there may be, there's going to be a discussion there will be a discussion, I believe, in the closed session of alternatives to that. And the discussion, that discussion and the alternatives and the reasons people may have therefore for voting one way or the other on the motion that you have addressed needs to be in closed session.
Commissioner Jacob, did I see your hand in the air?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm sitting here and listening to all of this and saying to myself, how is this being heard out there? All of this legal mumbo jumbo, privilege and this and that, and amendments and amendments to amendments, technical talk. We're talking about a report, whether it goes out into the public with redactions, without redactions, and we just can't even get underway. For 11 years, I sat on this commission, and all we heard was criticism about transparency. And here we are at our very last meeting, and we can't seem to cut through all of the amendments and the amendments, and all the technical language that nobody out there, or many people out there, can't even understand. Can we just try to be as transparent as possible, as straightforward as possible in what we say in our very last meeting?
I think we're trying.
Oh, it doesn't sound like it to me, and I don't think it sounds like it to the people out there.
Well, so I believe that Commissioner Levine was putting forward his friendly amendment in the spirit of, let's get to a discussion, let's come back, let's take a vote, let's make it clear to the public what we did, and hopefully explain why. So hopefully we can keep it simple, Commissioner Jacob. Commissioner DePiero, you were looking to be recognized?
I just thought that at the end of yesterday's meeting, we had consensus on where we wanted to go with this report and what we wanted to do with it. It came down to two alternatives. One was to make it public. One was to forward it to the new commission, the new entity, with their approval to do what they want. We had no regulation over what they did with it. So I don't understand why we're continuing to belabor the same points. If we've come to that conclusion, why don't we take a vote and see where it stands?
So I was in that meeting and I supported this meeting. There were not 8 votes to support what you're describing in that meeting. There also were 3 of our commissioners. No, there weren't. There were not 8. You had to talk to Commissioner McNamara to get to 8 votes to hold the meeting, including mine. So it's just not accurate to say that there were sufficient votes. And it wasn't a regular meeting anyway. We couldn't have voted.
I know.
So why can't we get on with it? Commissioner Levine made a friendly amendment. I accepted it. It's not what my preference would have been, but I would like to keep this moving. Is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized before we call the roll vote?
Chairman, Mr. Chair, just to clarify my statement was not that we came to consensus on what the outcome would be. My statement was we came to the consensus that we had two alternatives. One was to take this public, the other was to forward it to the new commission with a recommendation.
So, Commissioner, I've been contacted by fellow commissioners of yours and mine who have introduced different ideas than those two. And I think they should be heard. I would not like to describe those in the public session, but I would like to provide the opportunity for commissioners with some other ideas to put those forward and have discussion.
Okay.
What would you call the vote, please?
Judge Braun,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown. Commissioner DePiero,
Yes, because it's the only way we can move anything forward.
Commissioner Gersman,
Yes,
Judge Hendricks,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacob,
Yes.
Levine,
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Judge Yates,
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yes. We did not see, and we still don't see Commissioner Brown, but without her vote, we still have a majority. So I'm going to ask that we enter executive session, and whoever should be invited to join us, I'll leave that to the discretion of the executive director.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I had voted yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you are. Okay, thank you. Well, can you record her vote as yes, please?
Yeah, please stand by. Okay, thanks, Dan. I'll talk to you later. Okay, Mr. Chair, we are back in public session.
Okay, thank you, Walt. What I'd like to say is that no action was taken in executive session. I'm expecting a resolution to be put forward. And does the report out happen now, Executive Director Berlin, or does the report out happen after the vote?
The report out would be now, and just as you said, Mr. Chair, in executive session, the commission discussed issues that will be addressed by motion in public session.
Does any commissioner have a motion they would like to make?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Joint Commission on Public Ethics, having engaged the law firm of Hogan Lovells to examine the circumstances with respect to the approval of the application for outside activity income by Governor Cuomo, the report having been rendered and the report having been submitted to the commission. On the understanding that the report is the product of Hogan Lovells and not the commission, I move that it be released into the public domain immediately following the adjournment of this meeting, and that the copy that is presented in the public domain is unredacted. However, all designations, to the extent that they are extant, labeling the report confidential, privileged, or subject to attorney-client privilege be deleted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jacob. Before I invite discussion and debate, I'd just like to ask one technical question, I guess. Do we have a copy of this report in a form that gives us access to the watermarks and the things that say attorney-client privilege that are going to be removed, or do we need to ask Hogan Lovells to do that? I just want to make sure we can move forward expeditiously on this if the resolution is passed.
We will need to have Hogan Lovells provide a copy without the headers. We can remove the watermark, but not the headers, so that would be necessary.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion or debate? I'm going to reserve my comments for the end as the prerogative of the chair. But is there any commissioner that wishes to be recognized speaking for or against the resolution that's been moved and seconded? Okay, there being none, what I'm going to say is that I plan to vote against this resolution. I expressed why in the executive session. There are meeting minutes in the executive session that I assume will go to our successor agency. And that's all I intend to say about my reasons for opposing. Commissioner Jacob.
As we vote on this motion, our instinct when we vote on this motion is the fact that the commission, to the extent it is necessary, is waiving the attorney-client privilege in making its by making its vote, and the commission, by making the vote, if it approves, then it is duly authorizing the release, if any, of confidential information.
Commissioner, is that a new motion or is that an amendment to the motion?
Amendment, it's a friendly amendment.
Okay, the maker of the motion. But Commissioner McNamara wishes to be recognized, please.
That may be just a little bit overly broad, Commissioner Jacob. I think we should put some constraints on the waiver so that we're waiving only the privilege as it pertains to communications pertaining specifically to this report.
No objection.
So let me think. There's a friendly amendment to a friendly amendment, and presumably staff has caught the final text. Is that text as amended and amended again acceptable to the maker of the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And to the second person who seconded the motion?
Yes.
Yes. Does any other commission wish to be heard on this matter? I don't see any hands. We have one commissioner, Commissioner Brown, who is, I believe, on the call, and in the past we didn't hear her. Commissioner Brown, are you able to turn on the video just to make sure that I'm not overlooking anyone? Perhaps not. So I will ask, oh, there we go. Commissioner Brown, I saw you momentarily. I just wanted to make sure you did not have any desire to speak at this time.
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, great. The roll call, please, Walter.
Judge Braun,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Piro,
Yes.
Commissioner Gersman,
Yes.
Judge Henricks,
Yes.
Mr. Jacob,
Yes.
Senator Levine,
Yes.
Senator McNamara,
Yes.
Senator Weissman,
Yes.
Judge Yates,
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher.
No. Did each person vote? Did we record all the votes?
I have a total of 11, 10-1 in favor.
Okay. The motion passes. I think we all said our piece at the last meeting. So unless someone else wishes to say something, I'm going to invite a motion to adjourn the public meeting. Commissioner Weissman, are you making a motion or would you like to say
No, I
something?
have a very quick question for Judge Berlin. Is this going to be, once you get it back from Hogan Lovells, posted on the website?
Typically, that's how we would be releasing a document. at the direction of the commission. So we will be undertaking that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do you envision, Judge Berlin, that will be done today?
Even as you ask, I am reaching out to Hogan Lovells to request a copy that does not include the header.
Thank you.
That the commission has to be removed from the document.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Should this be a farewell instead of a motion to adjourn?
Is there a motion to say farewell and adjourn?
I think that's more appropriate.
All right, so I move that we say farewell and adjourn this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Best wishes to all.
Fare thee well.
Bye-bye.